Today we're going to build this adorable little flower shop together. Despite being a pretty simple build, it looks fantastic when placed in a tiny village surrounded by cosy cottages and bustling streets. The great thing about this build is that it looks lovely whether you build it with CITs or without. I'm going to show you how to create the vanilla shell using in-game blocks, but I'll show you how to decorate with CITs at the end. Please bear in mind I do use shaders and texture packs, which are all written in the description, so the textures of my blocks may vary to yours. Before we go any further, if you love cozy Minecraft builds, then this channel is for you. Subscribe to keep up to date with speed builds, tutorials, tips and tricks, and all things cottagecore. Here's a quick list of all vanilla materials used in this build. Take note that I joined together 2 birch slabs and 2 endstone slabs, so I'll refer to them as 1 block each. Let's get building. Let's begin by digging up the floor and filling it in with granite blocks. We're going to replace the 2 log markers to the right side of the build shortly with granite blocks as well, as that will be a side entrance. Once you've laid your floor down, go in and add a few blocks of polished granite here and there for detail. You can just place these randomly on your floor. Now it's time to create the shell of the build. As I said at the start of the video, join your 2 birch slabs together to create 1 full block. We're going to build the wall up by 1 all around and add an additional 2 blocks high of glass panes on the sections marked with logs. On this small back window here, we're actually going to have 3 blocks high of glass panes instead of 2. Add a block and a birch door on the single log space. Let's now start to build our walls up with the white concrete blocks. Other than on the side door space, add 1 block of concrete all around the build. Then go in and add a second layer. The front and back of the build will have the tallest walls, so build on top of the door with more concrete to make the total wall height 8. The next blocks outwards on either side will be 6 high and the ends of the walls will be 4 high. Go around the build and just add 1 more white concrete block all over, leaving out the bay window sections and the wall we've just worked on. The roof is super easy. Place your oak stairs next to the highest concrete block and keep placing them along until you reach the corner. Then follow that wall around and add an additional stair block at the end for the roof overhang. Leave the joining wall empty and then start again on the other side, once again making sure you add the overhanging stair block on both ends of the wall. Leave the next wall free like we did for the previous one, but carry on adding the stair blocks on the next wall. We're going to leave the very end wall free too. Whilst this roof is really easy, I am going to show you using different colours so you can see how the blocks sit. We're using both oak stairs and oak planks here. Add 2 back-to-back stair blocks, but the inside stairs are always facing downwards, which means we can add a full block on top of them. Then, on top of that block, add another stair and then another downturned stair next to it, and so forth. Once you've only got 1 space left between the stairs, add a downturned stair block which will face outwards. On the back of the highest roof block, add a row of plank blocks to take you to the opposite wall. Follow the same roof pattern for this side of the building. Once done, fill the wall in with white concrete to mirror the other wall and then sit 3 oak stair blocks on top of the window. This next part is really simple. Just grab your moss blocks and build a 2 high section, then bring it out by 1 and add another 2 blocks so they sit on top of the concrete walls. Leave the middle part free for when we join the smaller roof later on. Fill the roof completely on the other side, then line the top of the roof with oak slabs. We're now going to apply the same roof pattern as earlier to this last wall, but as the roof isn't going to be as tall, let's make the top wider instead. Copy what I do to have a total of 10 stair blocks and 4 oak plank blocks. Once again, we want the top middle 2 stairs to be facing downwards and out. Fill in the remaining roof space with moss again, but this time stagger the blocks in by 1 each time. add 2 rows of oak slabs on top to finish it off. As well as adding a 2-high window on the front wall of the build for more light, I'm going to join together 2 endstone slabs and dot them around on the walls. This is optional, but it breaks up the solid colour and makes a subtle yet interesting look around the build. Whilst you're working your way around the build and adding in your endstone details, on the wall where we've left the door space, fill in the rest of the wall and create an open door using glass panes by following what I do. There is the option to change this later when we do the interior. When you get back round to the front of the shop, add in 3 granite stairs below the door. Have the middle one facing you and the 2 on each side facing outwards. Another optional detail, and to add more light to the build, is to add 2 rows of glass blocks on the outside roof. You can also extend it to the top and the bottom of the roof to provide more light, which is something I do off camera. Now, it wouldn't be a Mads Plays videos without a replay mod mishap, so unfortunately without being able to give you the footage, I placed some acacia leaf blocks on the front of the shop. If you want to place yours exactly the same as mine, hopefully from this slow-mo clip you can get a rough idea of the leaf placement. If you don't like how leaves look, you can leave them off the build, but they really do make a difference to your build, so I would definitely advise using them. Let's work our way around the build now and add in some more acacia leaves up the walls and on the roof. I never have a structure for placing leaves, I just pop them down randomly until I'm happy with how they look. Add your leaf blocks all around the build, then grab some bone meal. We're going to spam the mossy roof with bone meal to bring some life to the build. This is optional, but I find that adding the bone meal creates a very cottagecore / fairycore feel, and I feel like that's just so fitting for a plant shop. Adding some flowers to the roof separately would also be a really nice touch, and I've popped down some glow lichen just for another little detail. Below the bay window, we're going to make a plant stall using 2 oak stairs on the ends and oak slabs in the middle. Let's create an awning above the window using wall blocks. I've chosen white and lime, but you can of course choose another colour scheme to match your taste. Repeat the awning on the other side, and then above the door just add an oak slab. Once again, optional, but I am going to carve out a little dirt path from the front door to the side entrance. I also popped down a couple of moss blocks and a couple of mossy cobblestone blocks. To finish off out here, let's do some landscaping. If you're happy with how your environment is already, or you don't want to add anything, you can just skip this part. For those of you who do want to landscape, let's craft some saplings. I've used birch, spruce and oak. Dot them around randomly and then grow them with bone meal. I love to use this colour combo for the trees, as the dark spruce leaves add depth, but the pink from the birch adds colour. I've got a pack on which changes the birch trees to pink, but like I said, all CITs, texture packs, shaders and mods that I use in all of my builds are in the description box. I've added in a little pond next to the build to add some wildlife like fish and frogs. It makes it feel really natural, which is the kind of vibe we're going for to match a flower shop. It's not part of this tutorial, but if you do want to make one too, just dig out a non-symmetrical hole in the ground, swap out some dirt blocks in the pond with gravel or cobblestone and fill with water. To detail, you can place some leaf blocks around it like bushes, then bone meal the pond floor and spawn some pond creatures. Lily pads are always a nice touch too. Moving on to the interior, place down a row of mixed granite blocks under the door, and then a row of mixed granite stairs. We then want to take our moss blocks and fill in this part of the ceiling which is in between both of the rooms. Use some endstone brick walls to go from one concrete wall to the other, just like I'm about to do here. This adds a little detail on the doorway. In the larger room above the bay windows, place some down-facing oak plank stairs. Now let's go back into the first room and pop down some birch trapdoors above the back window. These act as shelves and we'll be adding them to a couple more walls in this build. Repeat on the opposite wall above the front door. Now let's go back into our larger room and add some surfaces below the bay windows. You could add down-facing oak stairs to match above the windows, or you could swap them out for birch trapdoors. I personally prefer it with the trapdoors. We're going to focus on the side door now, and this is where you can change the design slightly if you want. Now you can just keep the door as it is and just add shelves around it, but if you want to add more shelf space, you can size the door down by moving the row of glass panes down by 1. This would make the entire door space 3 blocks high instead of 4. Pop a row of 2 concrete blocks in where the glass panes were before, and then if you want to allow more light into the build, you can also add in a 2x2 window at the top. The shelves just fit so nicely around it. We finished the shell of our build, detailed it and added some minor landscaping. So the last thing to do now is add the CITs. If you're not adding these in, you're welcome to cut the video here and get creative with using in-game items to decorate your shop. If you are using CITs though, or just want to see how I decorate the shop, keep watching. Here's a little list of all of the CITs used in the next few clips. On the front of the shop where we have this little stand out front, let's place down some pretty flowers and plants from CIT packs such as Garden Breeze and Mizuno's. We're going with lots of colours to really bring the build to life. By the front door, we're going to place down a plant shelf, a little chalkboard and this gorgeous wheelbarrow full of flowers. I love to use this for cottagecore and fairycore builds as it's just so beautiful and I find it blends in really well with those styles. I find for decorating small sections, it's great to work in odd numbers. I really like to create spaces using 3 CITs, and I call this the rule of 3. The last finishing touches to the front of the shop is to add a couple of hanging baskets, one by the front door and one on the end by the bay window. Moving around to the side, we're not going to go too heavy with decor, just placing down a few items to fill the space. Some more baskets filled with flowers sit nicely against the wall, and maybe add in some vines here and there to contrast against the white concrete blocks. We'll pop down another plant shelf as it's such a lovely item, and to finish my rule of 3, let's place down a plant and some fertiliser. Let's also use some window boxes to fill the space on the wall above the side door. Heading inside now, build up your shelves and bring them to life using various plants, flowers and decor items. Like the stand outside, avoid items on every surface space as it just looks a bit more natural and realistic this way. This till from Ghoulcraft is an absolute gem of an item, so I love to use it here. And I also think by adding a little stool, it makes it feel more like a checkout. Let's add some fertiliser by the door and another plant stand in a different colour, and begin popping down more plants on the shelves above the door. Hanging plants are a nice way to fill ceiling spaces. Place some plants and art on the wall for finishing touches in this room. Moving into the next room, let's make a little bundle of plants and pop this adorable mushroom print up on the wall for detail. We want to add some character to the rest of the shelves in this room, so let's fill them in with items like wellies, a fertiliser, pots, a watering can, a cacti, etc. To bring the outdoors in, we're going to place a mixture of Mizuno's ferns on the ceiling. You could also add leaf blocks or glowberries to hang down like a vine. Last but not least, adding a little bit of light with a CIT and a torch to brighten up the darker hours. You only really need one in each room, but you could add another if you wanted to. So guys, this concludes the tutorial, so I'm going to say goodbye and leave you to have a look around with what we've done. Let me know if you've built this in your world and if you have any other video suggestions. Thanks for watching!